All right, so I am planning on teaching Mariah. The topic, really, the subject is crocheting. Age level is 12 years old. The age level for crocheting really can be any age. It depends on how much patience and dedication that person has. Um, I learned when I was about 7, so I believe that this is well within the correct age level. A generative topic from this is patience. It's it takes some getting used to making sure like the stitches are even and evenly spaced, um, and that some of the stitches aren't too tight or too loose, and that you have the time and patience really to finish what you start, um, for any product, whether it's a hot pad, blanket, scarf, etc. The purpose is to learn how to crochet a hot pad and gain skills necessary to crochet other products. Like I mentioned before, the scarf or the blanket or hot pad or really any of the above, anything you can make with yarn. And that purpose is to gain the necessary skills of knowing what stitches to use, and what stitches work best with which products. I did a pre-assessment. I asked her several questions. If she's crocheted before, can you say the word crochet? What does crocheting look like? What does the hook look like? The tool that you use to crochet. And as a bit of an activity, can you crochet me a chain? Or will you? And then, from then, I got the answers back and realized that she has crocheted before. She knows a little bit about it. And can crochet a chain, but that was about the basics of it. So I went in to ask several other questions of how many crochet stitches do you know, what is the biggest thing you've crocheted, and have you crocheted a hot pad before, which really helped me determine whether or not to teach her how to crochet a hot pad. Some of the understanding goals, I would hope that Mariah understands the different ways and methods to get different stitches and crochet something more than a chain. A chain is great, but that's only the basis of any project that you start. Some other parts of crocheting that I want Mariah to know and understand is how to tie a slip knot, to know the different types of stitches, understand the variety of yarn types and colors, the variety of hooks and purposes. I want her to understand that patience is required when creating and finishing a product, and that any mistakes that are made while crocheting, they can be easily fixed, that it's not permanent and it's easy to undo and redo. The goal is that Mariah gets started on creating a hot pad using the different methods and the 2 different stitches that I will be teaching her. Um, Preferably, I'd want her to finish crocheting her hot pad, but be due to time and everything, I'd like her to get as close to finishing, or at least get a basic understanding of what to do, and really be able to do that repetitive motion of doing the same stitch over and over again, to really help her understand what she needs to do, so when she's on her own and I'm not there, she can do it by herself. And that I can get her at least started on the path of finishing, and so in her own free time she can finish. So for a couple of concept orders, I will provide some prototypes of what crocheted hot pads look like. I did present one in the ad of what a finished product of the hot pad that I would like her to make. And then discuss what yarn works best to complete the project, because there are several different types of yarn for different purposes, and some work better than others. After the yarn type is kind of discussed, we would cover the next concept of the variety of hooks there are, the different sizes, and how the hook sizes play into how big or little the stitches are. Once the topics and concepts of yarn and hooks are covered, then we'll go into how to tie a slip knot. She's crocheted before, so I believe she already has the understanding of how to tie a slip knot, but we can go over the basics and everything too, and kind of review it with her. After the slip knot, we'll then review the different stitches that will be used in the hot pad, which is specifically the chain stitch and the single stitch, what they look like and how to make them. Then I'll have Mariah practice the stitches by crocheting a small square, or even just a few chain stitches, and then off from there doing the single stitch, and making sure that she knows how to do both and how they kind of relate to each other and how they build off of each other. After that, we'll begin crocheting a chain, and then the second stitch that we learned, the single stitch, and how to really create that hot pad. So just several of the concepts are the crocheting in general, the crochet hook, patience, yarn types, products, pretty much all of the concepts that I mentioned before with the concept orders. A couple of defining features with crocheting. I decided to stick with the defining features of a hook because really that defines whether or not you're crocheting. The type of tool you're using, so the hook, it's the length, the color, the size, and the actual hook at the head of the, you can say, needle, and the purpose of the hook. Some correlational features are majority of the crochet hooks are metal. The colors are different. The width can be a little different. The brand of the crochet hooks are different. And the different yarns are used are also correlational features with under the topic of crocheting. Category of instances. So when you would use one when you're pulling a hot pan out of the oven or when you're placing a hot pan on the counter, use a hot pad so you don't burn yourself or your hand, arms, or surroundings. There's a couple of positive instances. So a crocheted square that is able to hold a hot pan without burning your hand, and that would be considered the prototype. And again, anytime you're using or you're pulling hot products out of the oven, that the hot pad is used. It's pretty basic. But some negative instances, sometimes the yarn that's used, it doesn't have a big enough surface area, and so you can end up burning your hand. And the wrong material ends up being used, and so you can get a yarn type or thread type that actually melts with heat or burns, and you don't want that when creating a hot pad. And then these, I did a very general overgeneralization and undergeneralization because crocheting is pretty basic, and there aren't a lot of misconceptions about it that I guess crocheting is knitting, that sometimes people think that, but there are distinct differences. But the two that I thought of, that all old people crochet, and the undergeneralization is older people are the only ones who crochet, and that isn't true. So yeah, that is my lesson plan for teaching Mariah how to crochet a hot pad, and my plans to, and really outline of how I want the lesson to go. And of course, with the lessons, they do tend to change due to the individual or any circumstances from what they say. But yeah.